Women don't belong in business discussions, especially unemployed ones like you. My father-in-law, Richard Parker, didn't even look at me as he said it, reaching across the Thanksgiving table to grab the wine bottle. My husband, Daniel, sat frozen beside me, fork halfway to his mouth, while his mother nodded in agreement and his brother smirked. What none of them knew was that the unemployed housewife they were dismissing had just signed a contract that afternoon worth $8.4 million to their struggling manufacturing company. The Parker family dinner table was a battlefield disguised as a holiday gathering. Crystal glasses, fine china, a perfectly roasted turkey that Richard's mother, Patricia, had spent days preparing. 17 people crowded around the extended table in their sprawling Connecticut estate, and I was the only one who didn't belong. Daniel, after dinner, we need to discuss the Henderson account, Richard continued, cutting his turkey with aggressive precision. Just the men. We'll use my study. Dad, maybe we should include, Daniel started. But his older brother, Kyle, cut him off. Include who? Your wife? Kyle laughed, his face already flushed from his third glass of wine. What's she going to contribute? Tips on grocery shopping? Patricia smiled sweetly at me. I'm sure Maya understands. Business is so boring for women anyway. We can discuss the charity gala while the men work. I sipped my wine slowly, letting the expensive Bordeaux coat my throat. My phone buzzed in my lap. A text from my assistant, Jennifer. Mrs. Parker, I'm seeing concerning activity on the Parker manufacturing account. Their CFO just sent over Q4 projections. They're worse than we thought. Should I prepare the contract termination paperwork? My thumb hovered over the screen. One word from me and Parker Manufacturing would lose their largest client. The client that represented 73% of their annual revenue. The client that had kept them afloat for the past 18 months, while every other manufacturer dropped them for cheaper overseas options. The client run by me. Maya, are you even listening? Patricia's voice snapped me back. I was saying you could help organize the silent auction. You have so much free time after all. Sorry, just checking a message, I said, setting my phone face down on the table. See, this is exactly why women shouldn't be in business, Richard declared, gesturing with his fork. Always distracted by their phones and their little social plans. When we're in that study, phones go away. We focus. That's what separates successful men from everyone else. Kyle raised his glass to successful men and the women who support them by staying in their lane. Several relatives laughed and raised their glasses. Daniel looked like he wanted to disappear into his mashed potatoes. My phone buzzed again. Jennifer, ma'am, their CFO is calling me directly. He sounds panicked. Says they need to discuss adjusting contract terms for next quarter. Translation: they can't afford our current pricing. What should I tell him? I typed back, tell him all contract discussions go through me personally. I'll call him Monday. Maya, phone's away, Patricia said sharply. It's rude. Of course. My apologies. I slipped the phone into my purse, but not before sending one more message to Jennifer. And Jennifer, pull a complete file on Parker Manufacturing. Every contract, every payment record, every communication for the past 18 months. I want it on my desk first thing Monday morning. Richard launched into a story about a deal he'd closed in the 1990s. His voice booming across the table. That's how business is done. Firm handshakes, man-to-man negotiations, none of this email and text message nonsense. You look someone in the eye, you make a deal, and you honor it. Absolutely, Kyle agreed. That's why Parker Manufacturing has survived for 40 years. Dad built it on relationships and integrity. Actually, I said quietly, setting down my wine glass. Parker Manufacturing has survived the past 18 months because of Parker Logistics Solutions. The table went quiet. Richard's fork stopped midair. What did you say? He asked. Parker Logistics Solutions, I repeated. The supply chain management company that handles all your warehousing, distribution, and freight coordination. The company that negotiated rates with your suppliers when you couldn't afford to pay them anymore. The company that extended you credit terms when your bank refused. Kyle was staring at me now. What does that have to do with anything? Everything, I said calmly. Because I own Parker Logistics Solutions. I'm the CEO, founder and majority shareholder. You could have heard a pin drop. Daniel's head snapped toward me. Maya, what? Parker Logistics Solutions, I repeated. I started it 6 years ago, 2 years before I met Daniel. We began with small regional clients, built a reputation for solving impossible logistics problems, and scaled to become one of the top 15 supply chain companies in the Northeast. Patricia's face had gone pale. That's impossible. You don't work. You're home all day. I work from home, I corrected. I have a dedicated office in our house. The one Daniel thinks I use for hobbies. I run a company with 140 employees across 4 regional offices. We did $47 million in revenue last year. Richard had set down his silverware. His hands were shaking slightly. You're lying. Am I? I pulled out my phone, ignoring Patricia's sharp intake of breath. I opened my email and turned the screen toward Richard. This is the contract your CFO signed 18 months ago. $8.4 million annually for comprehensive logistics management. You were 3 weeks from bankruptcy when you signed it. Your previous logistics company had dropped you. Your suppliers were demanding cash on delivery, and your biggest client had just canceled a $6 million order. Kyle grabbed the phone, staring at the screen. His face went from red to white. Dad, this is our account. Our biggest account. Parker Manufacturing was drowning, I continued, my voice steady. I came to Daniel's company Christmas party, met his family, heard Richard talking about the business struggles. I went back to my office and had my team analyze your situation. We could solve your problems, but you were too proud to work with an unknown company. So, I had my CFO reach out to yours directly. We pitched a comprehensive solution at 40% below market rate. Why would you do that? Richard whispered. Because I loved your son, I said simply. And I knew the business meant everything to your family. I thought I was helping. Daniel's hand found mine under the table. Maya, I had no idea. You never told me. You never asked what I did all day, I said gently. You assumed I was organizing closets and planning dinner parties, which I also do, by the way. I'm capable of both. Jennifer's timing was perfect. My phone rang, her name flashing on the screen. I answered on speaker. Yes, Jennifer. Mrs. Parker, I have Parker Manufacturing CFO on the other line. He's requesting an emergency meeting. He says their Q4 numbers are worse than projected, and they need to renegotiate contract terms immediately. Should I schedule something? Every eye at the table was on me. What kind of renegotiation is he requesting? I asked. He's asking for extended payment terms, reduced service fees, and a 6-month deferment on outstanding invoices. Basically, he wants us to provide the same services for significantly less money while they try to land new clients. I looked at Richard. His face had gone gray. Kyle was staring at his plate. Tell him I'll review the request and get back to him Monday morning, I said. And Jennifer, pull our complete contract. I want to review our termination clauses. Termination? Richard choked out. I ended the call. Your company is in trouble, Richard. Real trouble. The Henderson account you're meeting about tonight? I already know they're leaving. They told my sales team 2 weeks ago. They're switching to overseas manufacturing because you can't match the pricing anymore. How do you know that? Kyle demanded. Because Henderson Industries is also my client. I manage their logistics for their entire East Coast operation. When they told me they were dropping Parker Manufacturing, I tried to talk them out of it. But your quality control has slipped. Your delivery times have increased, and your pricing isn't competitive. Patricia was crying silently. Daniel squeezed my hand tighter. Why are you telling us this? Richard asked, his voice broken. Because for 18 months I've been subsidizing your business, I said. My company has been charging you 40% below our standard rates. We've absorbed delays, expedited shipments at our cost, and covered your mistakes with our reputation. I did it because you're my husband's family. I did it because I thought eventually you'd see me as more than just Daniel's unemployed wife. We didn't know, Patricia whispered. You didn't want to know, I corrected. Every time Daniel mentioned my work, you changed the subject. Every time I tried to discuss business at family gatherings, you steered the conversation to recipes and decorating. You decided I was irrelevant, so you never looked deeper. Kyle had his phone out, frantically typing. Dad, she's telling the truth. I'm looking at Parker Logistics Solutions website. Maya Parker, CEO and founder. There are articles about her in Industry Week, Supply Chain Management Review, Forbes. Forbes, Richard repeated numbly. They profiled me last year, I said. Northeast's rising stars in logistics management. You never read it because you assumed it had nothing to do with you. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Jennifer. Ma'am, their CFO is now calling me every 5 minutes. He sounds desperate. What are your intentions? I looked around the table at the family who dismissed me for 3 years, at the women who'd pitted me for being unemployed, at the men who'd excluded me from business discussions because I supposedly couldn't understand their world. Here's what's going to happen, I said calmly. Monday morning, I'm meeting with my executive team to review the Parker manufacturing account. We're going to make a decision about whether to continue the contract, renegotiate terms, or terminate the relationship entirely. Maya, please. Richard's voice cracked. We need you. The company needs you. I know, I said. That's the problem. You've needed me for 18 months, but you didn't know it. And now that you know, I have to decide if I want to continue being treated like I'm invisible while simultaneously keeping your business afloat. Daniel spoke for the first time since the revelation. Maya, I'm so sorry. I should have asked. I should have known. Yes, I agreed. You should have. But you didn't because, like everyone else at this table, you assumed that a woman who works from home isn't really working. That a wife who makes dinner and organizes the household can't possibly be running a multi-million-dollar company. Patricia reached across the table. We were wrong. Terribly wrong. Please don't punish the business because of our ignorance. I'm not punishing anyone, I said. I'm making a business decision. Parker Manufacturing is a struggling client that requires more resources than they're currently paying for. The only reason I've tolerated it is family loyalty. But after tonight, after being told once again that I don't belong in business discussions, I have to question whether that loyalty is deserved. Richard stood up slowly, his napkin falling to the floor. What would it take to keep the contract? I considered the question. Respect, I said finally. Acknowledgement that I'm not just Daniel's wife. That I'm a business owner, a CEO, someone whose expertise has value. And maybe, just maybe, an apology for 3 years of condescension. You have it, Richard said immediately. All of it. I apologize completely and sincerely. I was wrong about you. Wrong to exclude you. Wrong to diminish what you do. Kyle stood up too. I'm sorry, Maya. I've been a complete ass. Patricia nodded, tears streaming down her face. We all have. Please forgive us. I looked at Daniel, my husband, who I loved, who had never once thought to ask about my work because he'd assumed there was nothing to ask about. I need time to think, I said, standing up. I'm going to head home. Daniel, you should stay and have your business meeting. Talk about the Henderson account, discuss strategy, plan for the future. I'll see you later. Maya, wait. Daniel started. I'm not leaving you, I said softly. I'm just leaving this dinner. I need space to think about what happens next. With the business, with the family, with us. I grabbed my purse and walked out of the Parker family dining room, leaving behind a table of stunned relatives and a half-eaten plate of turkey. My phone rang before I reached my car. Jennifer, ma'am, Parker Manufacturing CFO is insisting on an immediate response. What should I tell him? I sat in my car, hands on the steering wheel, looking back at the beautiful Connecticut estate. Through the windows, I could see the family gathered around Richard, everyone talking at once. Tell him, I said slowly, that Parker Logistics Solutions will honor the existing contract through the end of the fiscal year. After that, we'll discuss new terms at market rates. If Parker Manufacturing wants to continue our relationship, they'll pay what our services are actually worth, and tell him that all future negotiations will be conducted with me directly, not through intermediaries who don't know I own the company. Understood. And ma'am, for what it's worth, you handled that like a boss. I smiled. I am a boss, Jennifer. It's about time everyone else figured that out. I drove home to the house I shared with Daniel, to the office he thought I used for hobbies, to the life I'd built while everyone was too busy underestimating me to notice. Monday morning would bring difficult conversations, contract negotiations, family discussions, decisions about the future. But tonight, I was going to sit in my office, review my company's quarterly reports, and remind myself that I didn't need anyone's permission to be successful. I'd been successful all along. They just hadn't been paying attention.